I'm not gonna give names, but there's a lot of people you might not at first expect who play VR chat. Like I know some physics professors I've heard of, haven't met this person yet. One person who works at JPL. I know of at least three people, and I'm friends with two of them who work at Unity. There's all sorts of people. A couple people who
Welcome to Metaversedegen. I'm Lion, and we're here joined by our wonderful guest.
Hello, everyone. My name is Karet. I'm the Director of Business for Project Community and the former chief of the LPD.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. It's a great pleasure to have you here. Well, joining me, us. I'm sorry. How did you how did you get started with being a PJKT, being the former chief for the LPD, and into VR chat?
Uh, so, to make a very long story short, when I was in college, I heard about this Kickstarter for this fancy new thing that you could strap to your head called an Oculus. And so, I've been interested in VR going way, way back. My first VR headset was a DevKit 2 from Oculus. And I started playing VR chat, initially trying it out in 2017, but I made this account in 2018 because I lost the old one. I think that was before the Steam release, so didn't know how to move stuff over. But I initially got into it because I saw some funny GIFs and stuff on 4chan of people goofing around in the VR chat environments and thought that looks really cool. So I went and checked it out there, played around a little bit, eventually came back in 2018. Didn't get super into all of the culture and VR stuff, just kind of played it every once in a while when there was nothing else to do. And then it wasn't until the pandemic in 2020 when things really took off and I started putting a lot more time into VR chat. And that's when I joined the LPD because I had a friend who was in it and I thought like, oh, that'd be fun, do a little fun role play. And I joined the LPD. They were looking for people who could help with development. I went to school for game development, so I was like, yeah, I can offer some help. And that led me down a giant path of just doing all sorts of world creation, avatar creation, all sorts of crazy stuff in VR chat for the LPD, which then led me into doing that work for VRCon and then into PJKT.
Wow. It sounds like you've been up to an awful lot since you got into here. What is, I'll start with things I'm not too sure about. What is the LPD and how did you end up becoming chief?
So the LPD is one of VRChat's oldest and largest roleplay groups.
Hmm?
We go around into public instances and create shenanigans and stuff centered around the interaction between your average everyday VRChat player and emergency services. So primarily police. But we also have a medical team and a SWAT team, and there's even a prison. And so there's a lot of fun stuff that goes on there. And it's all just improv roleplay. And we host multiple events every day and probably have a record for how many consecutive events we've done because we've done at least two per day every day for going on 5 years. So, yeah, got a community of about 20,000 people on the Discord. It's huge. So,
Okay. Okay. So, what kinds of events does the LPD hold and how are they normally structured?
So our bread and butter is every day we host just a basic patrol event where we gather up a whole bunch of people from the LPD, like all the different officers who have signed up to patrol, and we all gather in the LPD station world, split up into squads, and then everyone goes out to a bunch of different random public instances and public worlds and just try to find people to interact with. And this can be anything from sometimes people will see us come in and immediately be like, "Oh crap, the cops are here," and they'll like run away, and then we're like, "Get back here, Mister." And sometimes it's a little bit more. You have to kind of invite people for the role play. A fantastic example of a spin people really liked that I did one time was we decided to like put on our sunglasses and look super serious, and we'd go find that one person in the world who's always hanging out at the mirror by themselves, and we'd walk up to them and be like, Mr. President, it's not safe here. You have to come with us. And then other people in the instance heard that, and just shootout starts immediately, and it's tons of fun. And we're like, get down, and like trying to carry him away, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, just goofy things like that.
Oh, So how long were you end up with the LPD? And yeah, how long were you with them?
May 19th was my fourth year. So, um, yeah, I got accepted in 2020, May 19th. And then shortly after that, did my training and just kind of played around for a little while. I joined the development team in, I believe, September of that year. And then I became a staff member in February of the following year. And then as a staff member, I did a whole bunch of work until eventually in 2022, I was elected as the new chief.
Okay. Wow. So how do you feel about the time you've been with the LPD looking back to it?
It's genuinely been life changing. There's a lot of really cool things that have happened because of it. I don't know. It's a really good creative outlet, and I also get to teach people a lot of stuff too. So I don't know. I look back on it like super fondly. The only thing I would change is join it sooner. But yeah, it was just a great time.
Okay.
And I'm still there working on things. I just haven't, like, I'm not the chief anymore. I've stepped down and relinquished that responsibility to some other poor, unfortunate soul. So now I just do development and stuff for them and give advice here and there on different things.
Okay. So what kinds of things comes with the role chief, as well as you mentioned earlier it was life-changing? What did you mean by that?
So sorts of things that come with being the chief of a community that large, a lot of it is down to like the easy part is down to the day-to-day decisions of all the different things that have to go on. And I say that's the easy part, but it is still quite difficult. But at least you have like a whole team of people there to help with. The hard part is the unforeseen stuff, situations popping up every day, people getting in a fight, or like someone like stealing our copyright stuff, or someone ripping our avatars. Those things just kind of pop up here and there, and it causes a lot of stress having to deal with all that. And the constant messages for help from, like, you want to try to help everybody, but when there's 20,000 people, it's too much to handle. You can't get to everybody. There's just a lot of moving parts that you have to keep track of. Like within the LPD, there are different teams of people dedicated to doing different things. Like this is the media team, this is the development team. Across all of them, there's probably about 250 people just making the thing work. And you, as the chief, have to know what everyone's doing. Not down to the, like, most minute detail. You're not going to micromanage people, but you at least need to keep updated, like, hey, who's the team lead for this? Where are you guys at? What's kind of the expected due dates? What can we say to the community? How do we organize these meetings? There's just a ton of logistical and administration work. But then on top of all of that, you're also the community manager. So you have to be the bright, happy face at the front of the camera. And just it's a ton of work. Yeah, I don't know. I think I understand a little bit how Tupper feels. I just
Uh,
it's a very, very difficult job.
hmm. I can only imagine being in charge of 20,000 people like that, an entire roleplay community. What kinds of things did you end up taking away from the role? Because it sounds like there's a lot to do. You must have picked something positive, right, or learned something from the position while you're there.
Yeah, so I've definitely learned a lot and grown as a person. I've learned how to manage people a lot better, but I've also few few odds and ends of like just general life advice. One of the things that was really difficult for me initially is I really like to argue, and I'm really good at arguing, and I like to win. And I had to learn to kind of decide when an argument isn't worth it. Like, oh, this person's wrong on this thing, but it doesn't really matter, so I'm just not going to say anything. Because there's a lot of people who have like opinions on how things are running and like what you should do to run the community. And there are going to be those times where you want to say, no, we can't do that because X, Y, and Z, and you don't understand the whole problem and blah, blah, blah. But then you're just beating down on the person. It's better to just take their feedback and be like, okay, well, I appreciate you giving that feedback, and it's something we'll look into it, even if you know you're not going to. It makes them feel better. It keeps some headache off of you. Just learn to let things go, I guess.
Hmm.
That was a tough one for me, but
Oh, that sounds like very good advice to take away from a role like that. Oh, and
hmm.
to the second part of the question, you mentioned earlier that your time in the LPD was life changing. Would you mind elaborating on what you meant, and how did it make you feel?
So I'm gonna give you an example, but I can't talk too much about it. But it is fun. I went to school originally for game development, but due to life, couldn't do a whole lot of, couldn't really pursue that industry. But I was always doing like little odd projects here and there and kind of honing my skills a little bit. But it wasn't until joining the LPD where I really got the chance to just dump everything and be like, all right, here's all the stuff I know. Here's all the stuff I don't know. Let's go learn that. And so I'd constantly be learning new things and applying them, and that led to me getting and meeting new people as well, and gaining contacts, networking, and all that led to me getting a few different jobs, all the way right up to the point where the coolest job I ever had was actually as a client engineer for the Pokemon company.
Oh,
So during that interview, they specifically asked me about the LPD, and I just got to just be like, "Bam! Look at all this cool stuff. Look at all these things we're doing," and I don't know, it was a lot of fun. So,
oh,
but yeah, that was probably the coolest job I ever had. I don't work there anymore, but that was a thing. So,
oh. What did they think about your time with the LPD, and what was the job like? You don't have to go in specifics, but I'm just curious what's it like working for the Pokemon company of all places.
it's really neat. There's a lot of cool stuff there and a lot of brilliant people. Um, Everyone I spoke to was just awesome. But the interview, there was a lot of like tilted heads, like, wait, what is this? What are you doing? And I don't know. I had fun because I just got to gush about all the stuff I'd been doing over the last few years. But gosh, I think I forgot the first part of the question.
Oh,
I don't know. It was really neat.
hmm.
Working there was a time,
Okay. Oh yeah, the first part of the
but
question is what did they think about the LPD in your time with VR?
oh yeah, they were a little like like what's going on, what is this, but once I explained it to them, then there was a general understanding. They're like, oh, it's this neat side project he's got where he's done all this thing and look at all the success it's had. So and it gave me the opportunity to show like kind of my time management, my like ability to pace out my work and get things done on time, and reprioritize stuff. I don't know. It was just big project. Here's an example of a big one I've done. So
Hmm. Wow, that sounds like uh quite the amazing thing to be able to do. How did you end up in that kind of situation in the first place, may I ask?
they actually reached out to me on LinkedIn. They
Oh.
have a recruiter that just kind of goes and searches for game developers, and then you know,
Oh.
yeah, they just said, "Hey, you want to do an interview?" And I was like, "Whoa, of course!" So there you go.
Okay. So from there, you said you went from the LPD into VRCon. What led you to that, and what did you do with them?
So the very first VRCon event, the LPD had a booth, and that was one of the first things I had to do after joining the LPD's dev team was to create that booth. And so I went and made it, and then we all went to that event, and it was a blast. I loved it. There was a whole bunch of different communities all hanging around, doing various different things and interacting with each other, and it was just a great time. So much so that I went to one of the people at like who was leading VRCon and said, "Hey, is there any way I can help out with next year?" Um, and so I got added to the team a couple months after the first VRCon event ended. And then the second year, I went and made two of the worlds in collaboration with some other people. And that sort of led to me being semi promoted to the world team lead, but that's because the world team lead was leaving after that event, and so I just kind of shuffled up, and then for the third year of VRCon, Same thing, just made a whole bunch of worlds, got a whole bunch of the development stuff done, and all the the udon scripting and 3D modeling and everything, because everything there was made completely from scratch. So we just kind of do it all over again every year, and yeah, so it was a very natural transition to go from doing that at VRCon to doing that same thing at Project Community. So.
Hmm. Okay. How did so with Project Community when you switched over to that, you said you're the business lead. How did you end up in a position like that with business lead, and what do you do?
So I ended up in that position because there were some internal talks at VRCon that we'd been having for years, and we just felt like we weren't progressing the right way. We had some goals that we had laid out that we really wanted to try to do, but we were never able to explore just due to a myriad of factors. But one of them is there's this sort of route, this concept that I really, really like that Virtual Market does, where they've managed to take advertisements from large companies that pay them to advertise in their worlds, and they take that money and they funnel it down to these small asset creators who sell things at the virtual market events. And through that, they're able to pay their whole staff team to just do virtual market as their day job and do all of that. And we thought it'd be really cool if we could also get into that same line of thinking, like, well, let's get money from big companies and give it to all of the communities in VRChat to better show off what they do, right? More events, bigger, fancier stuff, more support for cross-platform, those sorts of things. And if we're lucky at the end of the day, maybe we can call that our day job. It's worth a shot, but we just couldn't really, with the leadership we had at the time, we couldn't really get down that road. And so when we made Project Community, we set that out as one of our like founding goals. Is like, okay, my job is going to be to handle two things. Really, it's the same thing, but one, our relationship with other communities and different organizations, but then also our relationship with different businesses. So, like, for example, if we needed to email VRChat and ask them permission for something, I would be the one to do that from my, work email. So, yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Oh wow. So how do you feel being in a position like that? And is it easy to run a community like PJKT?
Genuinely terrified, and it is not easy. There's a lot that goes on that you just kind of have to keep an eye out for, like what other sorts of events are popping up that we might be able to like cross promote, or what new exciting communities have formed that don't know about us yet, and we can invite them in and show the world like, hey, look at this cool new community. There's a lot of little things like that you have to kind of keep track of, and always be really like looking into just what's going on in VR chat. But the flip side of that is there's a lot of drama in VR chat, and so you also have to kind of just try to separate yourself from that as much as possible. We want PJKT to be a place where we can show off all the different cool communities that are doing cool stuff in VR without them being at each other's throats, I guess. So it comes down to little things like knowing like, oh, that community leader really doesn't like that community leader, so let's put their boots on the opposite side of the map, that kind of thing. But yeah.
Okay. Wow. So how much I know here soon the PJKT has an event coming up for 2024. How much work normally will go from like what you do into the finalization into the event?
Oh gosh, it's hard to quantify. There is a ton of work that goes into it, which is why we don't do them that often. We're pretty consistently once a year. We did try doing two different events last year. That seemed to work out pretty well. But we're still exploring and kind of seeing what we can handle. But there is a ton of work that goes into it. There's a lot of asset creation that needs to happen, coordinating with different communities, a lot of filming and editing. And then just working around everyone's time schedules, if someone's like their day job gets really busy, we may not be able to rely on them for some things, so we need to try to find a way to make our schedule work around them. And so I don't know. It's just a ton of work. Usually, for years now, we've always been saying like we're gonna do it, get started sooner and do it better next year. But we always end up crunching at the end of the year, anyways. We're kind of in crunch mode right now because while we do have a ton of stuff done already, and we're like ready to go if we needed to host the event tomorrow, not all of the pieces are in place. So we're trying to make it as pretty as possible. Just get those last little details in there. Get the last few communities that we've recently invited, get them set up with a booth and everything, and just try to make it better than last year. And so far, it's going to be way better than last year. I'm super excited about this year, but
Cool.
man,
Oh,
there's just a lot,
so
like thousands of man hours.
I can
Sorry.
only imagine. I've heard little bits from the people we've talked with so far, as well as from Novid and Deathmap, how much work goes into it, and I don't envy you guys at all, but I'm also very impressed and happy that you and your team are putting in the work for something like PJKT with Lens and the fest that's coming as well.
Hmm?
Hmm. Oh, I'm excited as well.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with what you guys do, and I'm excited for what's coming this year. Sorry for the long-winded thing.
No, you're good. Uh, um, yeah, just I don't know.
Oh,
That's
oh,
all I got. I mean, look, I do have one thing I could mention that's pretty neat, actually.
hmm.
So this news, can you keep a secret just for like one day?
Sure. This is not going to be released for weeks out, so.
Right, I figured. But so today, this hasn't been announced officially yet by us, but it has been announced by this other company. But today we found out the results from this year's Telly Awards, and
Oh,
PJKT won gold.
whoa! Congratulations. With I remember hearing about that and seeing all the announcement and stuff. Uh, what wasn't PJKT the first like VR group in the tellies?
The first one that we know of that does kind of what we do and like on the scale we do, if you go look at their website, there's been a few other VR projects, including one in Vrchat, that have won awards in the past, but I'm not sure if anyone else has ever won gold. And, you know, the thing that we do is there's a lot more excitement around it because we're trying to show off all of the different things that people in VR chat do, all the different communities that are out there. Um, Whereas I think the previous stuff that I've seen win awards was more like here's VR being used tailored to a specific application.
Ah.
So
So, did you get any feedback from the people who run the tellies about your group and what you do since you guys won gold?
I haven't gotten any emails other than the "Hey, congratulations" email. They might be sending other stuff. You know, we have one of our guys is his house is the physical mailing address for all the stuff from them. So I'm not sure if they're gonna send any more information or anything. But it just they put up the winners on the website this morning, and we were like, "Yo, that's
Oh,
us!" I couldn't be more proud of the team.
hmm. Well, congratulations to you and all of you for the hard work you've done. You deserve the award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, so with everything you've done with PJKT so far, how do you feel about being in your position and everything you've experienced so far?
Um, It's a little rough because I tend to be pretty hard on myself. I mean, most people tend to be harder on themselves than they are on other people. But we've we've accomplished a lot in this last year, and we've accomplished a ton going into this next event that we're hosting. But I always feel like it's not quite enough. It's not my 100% best. And so there are times where I'm a little frustrated at just like if I'm in this position, why haven't I gotten this done yet? Why haven't I gotten that done yet? And you know, most of the time it's stuff out of my control, but there's always that part of my brain that's like, well, you could have tried something, you could have tried this, could have tried that. So I guess I'm just like I'm happy and excited for what we're doing, but I'm also a little frustrated with myself for not getting to where we want to be yet. It's like starting a video game with your friends, and they're all like max level and you're trying to catch up. That's kind of what it feels like a little bit, except there's no other friends. It's just we see where we want to be and we're trying to get there as quickly as we can. Um, I don't know. That's how it feels.
I can very much understand that sentiment as well. The hurry up and wait is the hardest part of a lot of projects like that.
Yeah.
So I could
Yeah.
empathize with you very much on that. I wish you the best of luck getting to where you need to be.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yep, one foot in front of
Oh,
the other. You'll get there eventually. Have faith. Don't be too hard on yourself.
yeah. We'll try.
So with everything you've done so far, how much were you able to we have so far heard about what you brought into VRChat. Is there anything you particularly you're able to pull out of, like, in terms of skills or anything you've learned from your time here in VRChat between LPD or VRCon or PJKT?
Yeah, definitely. So I've mentioned some skills earlier, like just getting better at game development and stuff, and and then there's some soft skills like learning how to manage people and make professional relationships and things like that. A lot of that has come with age as well. The longer you're doing something, the better you get at it. But like also, the older you get, the more you're able it feels like the more you're able to kind of take a step back and see the whole picture on things, and so there's it there's a lot of little things that are hard to quantify that I've taken away from this. A lot of little skills like being able to better stick to a routine because things got out of hand one day. So I learned how to use software to manage large projects like that, like using Trello or Jira or ClickUp, for example, things like that. So like that's a skill that take away from this. Learning how to talk to people who are upset and stuff like that. Just from a community management point of view. Learning how to delegate tasks. There's a lot of little skills like that on top of the like just learning better Blender and Unity stuff, doing more programming stuff. All of that came from doing stuff in VRChat.
Wow. Are you glad you've done as much work in VRChat as you have?
I am, but there's so much more I want to do. Like I'm
Hmm.
excited about all sorts of new stuff that we've got coming up, and I want to do more and more and more. So, yeah.
Well, do have another question for you. How do you manage your time with all these projects, especially as you want to do more? Like, I very much understand the scheduling process, but you sound like you're up to so much more. How do you do everything?
It's nightmares. There's a lot of things I use to try to cope with the amount of projects that I have, and this is all on top of my day job, by the way. So I keep a lot of sticky notes on my desk. Whenever something pops up that I can't deal with immediately, write it down, stick it on my monitor. I use ClickUp and Jira for tracking tasks and stuff, especially for managing other people's work. So, if I have people working under me on something, then I'll just go write it down there and be like, hey, whenever you're done, just drag this thing from here to here so it's in the done category. It'll send me an email and I'll know it's done. Things like that. Getting up at the same time every day helps a lot so that you're just more consistently in a routine of managing things. Meetings, lots and lots of meetings, and lots of delegation in those meetings helps a lot. Just kind of keeps a lot of things that you're doing fresh in your mind, but also it's hard because you don't want to micromanage people, but you also want to keep track of where everything is. So finding that balance is a bit rough. But the reminder of there is a meeting coming up often gets people to schedule out their time themselves. So like, for example, if I have a meeting, like I have a meeting tomorrow, for example. So I know in my mind all the things that I need to have ready for that meeting. And so I feel pressured to get that stuff done tomorrow morning. so I'm going to get it done tomorrow morning. And so little tricks like that that help me personally keep track of everything that I'm doing. Lots of sticky
Whoa.
notes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I can only imagine trying to keep track of everything the way you do, and I'm glad that you have a method, especially with PJKT
Yeah.
Fest, by the way. Now, you don't have to share if you don't have to, but is there anything that people can look forward to for this year?
Um, I mean, new world, same theme as last year, but just a new layout, new assets, and everything. It looks a lot prettier. We've got a new booth for people who are using the standard template booth, but you can also use the one from the previous year if you'd prefer that. And we're going to be giving those assets out as well. New SDK is really nice. I'm quite proud of it. It looks great. The backend team did a fantastic job on the API, so everything's super easy to update now. Um, yeah, it should be a lot easier to just make your stuff to submit to us and then come to the event and have a blast. And it's going to be a week long this year, so even more time to go and hang out with everybody.
Oh, so with the SDK specifically, when is that coming out, and when can or and where can people go to get it?
So, when is it coming out is a fun question because every day for the last week I've been saying tomorrow. And I want to say tomorrow again, but there's always one or two little things that pop up during that final QA testing where it's like, well, this is broken now, so we got to go fix that. And but we're so close. We're already filming the video for like the sort of informational video of like, oh, hey, here's the new SDK, here's how to use it, and everything. But so it is like right there. But hopefully tomorrow. Hopefully.
Hope, hopefully tomorrow, as in recording, and not tomorrow as when this goes up.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to ask a question that's going to be a bit of a whiplash question to way back in the beginning, but I'm curious. It sounds like from what you said, you went to college for game development. What led you to want to go after that as a career path?
So I played a lot of video games when I was a kid, like real young, um, and so like they were always pretty cool. But the thing that kind of the the game that kind of blew my mind and made me kind of decide this is what I want to do. It's not even like one of my favorite games. It's a really good game, but it's just it had an impact at that moment, and that was The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. And the
Hmm.
thing that it did that I hadn't seen before was this sort of semi-open world environment where, as you traverse the sea, it unloads assets behind you and loads in new ones, and it's a very seamless process. And I had never seen that before. And it got me thinking, like, wait, you can do that in a video game? Well, what else can you do in a video game? And that led down a, like, 25-year long rabbit hole. So,
Oh wow. Okay. Well,
but yeah, that was it.
I will say that's one of my favorite games in the series as well, Wind Waker. Good game to
Yeah.
get you into that career path.
Yeah, no, I thought it was quite charming at the time, and it had those features I mentioned before that I thought were really cool. It had a ton of content, and the music was nice.
Hmm. So, what about how the game was made as well as game itself? What about it made you want to go down that rabbit hole? Hello, just real quick. I'll only take a few seconds of your time. In the description, that way you have a card, Metaversedegen to card.co. We have many links down there for you to come check out. We have an X link, which is with me. We have a Discord where we hang out and do stuff all the time, as well as a Patreon link, where if you wish to support us, you can. Where there's also a show and another podcast separate from Metaverse Degen, that which we have available to our wonderful members who signed up, such as Niche, Training Fangs, Aliquum, and Forbidden Zero. Thank you all. You're all amazing. Enjoy the rest of your video. I won't take up any of your time.
I don't know if it's anything in particular about that game. It was just kind of a moment of awe that made me kind of wonder about video games in the way that led me to then pursue developing them. So it's more that Yeah, it's just more of that. The game was really cool, and I thought like, wow, it'd be really cool to be able to do stuff like this.
Hmm. Okay. So, what is? Have you had any outside of VR experience with game development after you were able to use your college, or is it all like in VR?
So during college, we would go to these little what they called user group associations, these little meetups of people in the industry who do various things. And so I got to talk to a few people here and there, but I don't even remember anybody that I spoke to. Um, After that, there was one funny little game that I got to work on a little bit, just out of a side fan project, way back in 2011, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, something like that. There was this whole big craze around the reboot of the My Little Pony cartoon, and there was a bunch of fan created like animations and things in there, and I got to work on a few projects around there, and one of them was a video game called Pony Kart. It was like a Mario Kart knockoff, and we never finished the game, but that was pretty neat. But after that, there was a big gap where I just had to do survive, like out of college and everything, like just get a job, get the bills paid. And so I didn't really touch game development for a while until, uh, really until I got my Oculus Dev Kit 2. And I've been kind of poking at things ever since then.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah.
Okay. Well, are you glad that you went down that path for game development? And what is game development at college like versus what people here in VR chat would particularly be used to and how they learned to use Unity?
Uh, Here's the difference. In VR chat, doing stuff specifically for VR chat, you're going to learn a bunch of the wrong things and a bunch of the wrong ways to do stuff. But you're going to learn. In college, in my opinion, you're not. The classes that I took did not prepare me for anything that I do today, and they really were just, in my opinion, a big waste of time. But that I probably just went to a terrible school. But that's, I don't know. That's how it was for me. I didn't take a whole lot away from it, other than I still wanted to do it. So yeah, you'll learn way more, way faster doing stuff here in VR, or even if you don't want to make a VR game, just go do some YouTube tutorials or something. Just do something, right? Make something, even if it's bad. You'll learn a lot more that way than you will going and sitting in on a lecture.
Hmm. Okay. So, what kind after you went to college and you found better ways to learn your trade? What kinds of things did you do to further go down that career path after college?
Um, a lot of it was finding things I wanted to make or things I wanted to learn how to do, and just trying to figure them out. There's a lot of like asking for help from people who have already done these things. So, for example, I have a friend from a long time ago who's a environment artist. I can't remember where he works now, but he was the guy who introduced me to the Substance Suite, right?
Hmm.
And so I was like, hey, you use this thing every day. I've seen the work you do, and it looks really cool. Can you tell me how you did this, right? Got me started on how to use Substance Designer to make like tiling textures and stuff. Um, and so, cool, that skill down. I know how to do that now. What's the next thing? Well, for example, as we entered this world, I noticed a little feathered grass on the edge of the map, and I can't tell from here how they did it, but I am curious about it, and so I would run up and look at it and be like, I wonder how they did this. And if I can't figure it out, then I would just contact the world creator and be like, hey, I noticed this. Did you do it this way, or is it something else? And, it doesn't hurt to ask. Sometimes they won't get back to you, and other times you learn something new.
Okay.
And then you go and try to make it yourself.
Okay. So, with all the knowledge you've obtained in your quest to learn game development, do you look at video games or VR chat differently since you've gained that knowledge?
Absolutely. There's a lot of, like, there's a a switch that you can turn on to see the topology of everything. Like you can just look at something and understand how it was created, or like look at an effect and figure out the shader code for it. It's definitely changed how I look at a lot of games, and it helps that I hang out with a bunch of nerds too. So like we kind of dissect like whenever a new game comes out and has some kind of cool effect or rendering technique, and we'll just go try to figure it out and try to see if we can recreate it a little bit. But playing video games, and especially playing VRChat, that's constantly going off in my head is like, how did they do this? How did they do that? I mean, it's not like distracting from the game, but it's just a fun thing to think about.
So, do you think that kind of thought process enhances your enjoyment of what you're doing?
It can. It can at times, and at other times it can detract from it a little bit. It really depends. Like, for example, game that came out recently, Helldivers 2, does a really cool... They have a really cool material setup to be able to render all of the different stuff on your armor with like very few or very small textures, and it's a really neat technique that they've done in their shaders. And we looked at that and thought, yo, that's really cool, that's a brilliant idea how they did it. And so now when I play the game, I think about that. I'm like, guys, I know none of you care or understand this, but this is really neat. And so I don't know. For me, that enhances the experience. But then there's other times where like I'll look at something and be like, that's lazy. Don't do that. Like the sandwich in Starfield, that's like 70,000 triangles or something. So, ups and downs.
Wait, the sandwich is 70,000 polygons?
It's something like that. It's some absurd number, but I know it's at least 5 digits.
Well, I can tell you, I don't have as much knowledge as you, and Starfield made me annoyed. I can only imagine how it made you feel.
Yeah, no, I didn't even play it. I heard about that and was like, wow, all right. But I don't know.
Okay.
Like it's one thing if it's like somebody in VR chat who has an unoptimized avatar or something. I'll look at it. I'll offer them advice on how to make things better. Heck, I'd even teach them if they were willing to learn. But when I look at like a big game company like that, there's not really that beginner excuse. So
You
yeah,
do.
it's just a higher standard for the companies than I do for, the small creator.
Yeah, I can understand why you'd have different expectations of each, especially one has billions of dollars and a bunch of people on a team versus someone who's probably self-taught and has little Blender experience.
Yeah, definitely.
What have been some games you've been quite impressed by since you've got into game development?
Now you're making me think. um, the water in Sea of Thieves was really cool. Just the simulation for that was really neat. What else? Well, speaking of simulations, just the entire physics in Bone Lab and Boneworks. That was a whole big thing for that game when it first came out. Was that it was like really accurate physics. And I actually talked to a couple of the guys from Stress Level Zero about that a little bit, and they were like, "Dude, if you want to get into doing VR games, math, learn these physics, learn how to make this stuff feel correct." And so those games were really impressive. Elite Dangerous was really impressive when it came out, actually, just because of the way they got scale working properly, and it was an early VR title, so that was really neat. And they had a lot of cool sound design and shader effects and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. There's little things here and there that I'll look at a game and be like, wow, that part's really neat.
So, with you mentioned you've reached out to some people and they said math. Were the people in which you reached out to like ask about Boneworks and Bone Labs, were they very happy to talk with you about like the questions you had?
Well, sort of. So, The first person I met was actually giving a talk at VRCon in 2021,
Hmm.
and so they were just taking questions, and I asked my question, and afterwards I got to talk to them a little bit more just about general stuff, but it was already at the end of a long day for everybody. So, but the other person I spoke to, I speak to them on occasion, usually not about stuff like that, but trying to think of anything in particular we've talked about. Um, I don't know. I'm trying not to give names because I want to respect their privacy.
Oh, of
But
course.
they both play VR chat.
Oh, well, I didn't know that bit.
But yeah,
I did kind of. I've heard over time, like doing Metaversedegen, that game developers in VR chat is not unheard of. I just would never have expected Boneworks and Bone Labs to be in VR chat. At least I did not anyway, and I wouldn't want you to dox them and have everyone send them friend requests
yeah,
and
no,
stuff.
no. I'm not gonna give names, but there's a lot of people you might not at first expect who play VR chat. Like I know some physics professors I've heard of, haven't met this person yet. One person who works at JPL. I know of at least three people, and I'm friends with two of them who work at Unity. There's all sorts of people. A couple people who either used to work at or still currently work at Facebook, like on the Quest and stuff. There's like the people who are making this stuff. They're right here with all of us. They're in it. They want this to succeed. So
Hmm. So I'm odd with Facebook. I'm kind of surprised they play VR chat as much since they do have Horizon Worlds.
well, yeah, but you gotta remember, I'm not referring to like the top business people who are marketing the product. I'm talking about like the random programmer who's working on like say the software that does eye tracking in the
Hmm.
Quest Pro, right? Um,
I'm
you
not.
know,
I'm not
they
trying
want
to
to
put
play
any.
VR stuff. They go play VR chat.
Well, I'm
No,
not trying
yeah,
to put anyone in a weird spot or like, oh, how dare they be in VR chat? It's not at all. I'm just kind of. I'm more surprised. That's all.
no. I'm just trying to get you like think about it from their point of view. Like if
Hmm.
they really like this stuff and they want to go somewhere, where are they gonna go?
Yep.
I mean, yeah, they have the work platform, but um, man, I don't know. More cool stuff's happening here, so
Hmm. Understandable.
and you get to be a custom avatar.
Indeed. So, after everything you've experienced so far and what you've regaled for us, are you glad you bought the original dev kit and came into VR and played VR chat?
Absolutely. I just wish I hadn't taken like that break. I wish I just stayed and gotten into it more and more in the early days. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I've still been around like for a hot minute, but there's a couple years there that I missed, and I'm real sad about it. So,
Hmm.
the like 2015, 2016 era is just never, no idea what happened then. So,
Hmm. Well, even though you may not know,
but
you're here now, and lots of cool things are happening every day. I know we've had an amazing chance of meeting some fantastic and crazy groups. I think, in terms of what you're willing to experience, is bound to get a lot more interesting as time goes on.
yeah, no, things have gotten more interesting over the years. Because definitely back to 2018 VR chat compared to like now, it's very very different. It's different socially, culturally, all of the tools we have now, all the worlds, thematically too. One really common thing of old VR chat, when I think of old VR chat, I think of dark worlds with like a nighttime space skybox, and there was a lot of those where it's just like planes and avatar pedestals, and you just hang out there in the world. Or even the old hub, the one in the old spooky castle. There was also another castle in the sky. That one I loved. That was the coolest hub. But they were just kind of like floating platforms in the sky or in space. And today, worlds feel a lot more fleshed out. There's a lot more of an environment to this. Um, but just in my mind, it feels like two different eras. If this was a 2018 VR chat map, these walls wouldn't be here, and that it would be nighttime with a star like or galaxy background skybox. Uh,
Hmm. Interesting.
yeah.
I did know that the old that the different eras of VR chat had different themes to them. I kind of figured over time as people got better at it, they would get more fleshed out, but I didn't know like the themes or ambience of the worlds that were that different.
Yeah, you can see remnants of it in popular worlds that have survived all this time, like Great Pug, right? Nighttime. Um, Gaia Nights, nighttime. Just a lot of that. The idea of a enclosed, cozy world wasn't anywhere near as popular as it is now.
Hmm.
So,
It's quite interesting that cozy has become more of a theme now than it was then. What do you think kind of drove the differences in what people enjoyed in worlds?
um, I'm not sure. Um, I've seen a general shift in the kinds of people who play VR chat and the general behavior of people playing VR chat that I think lends itself a little bit more to the isolationist like playstyle where it's just you and your friends in a private room hanging out. And I wonder if that's played into it. And I don't have any like cause for that happening, but certainly back in the day, people were a lot more open to random conversation. And you can even find old clips. I'm talking like pre-Uganda Knuckles. You can find old clips of random strangers just hanging out in a world, chatting in ways that would be much more rare these days, or even doing silly gags and stuff. And that's actually like one of the things why the LPD originally started was that's just kind of what people did back then, go into public worlds and do shenanigans. And so the role play that we have is kind of a leftover remnant of that era.
Hmm. Interesting. With L, I don't. I'm not sure if you're still with LPD or not, but with, do you think that the LPD style of roleplay is still generally accepted by players today versus it was back when it started?
For longtime VR chat players, they know and they're like open to it, and there seems to be quite a bit of community support there. For new players, it could be a little jarring, especially if they don't know how to roleplay or they only time they've played VR chat is with their friends in a enclosed space. So it could be a bit of a different experience. Um, the what do I want to say? As times have changed on how people expect to be interacted with in VR chat, we've adapted a bit. We've started doing some more internal events just with our community to kind of accommodate and pull some pressure off of being in public worlds every day. So, typically every Saturday we'll have some sort of special event. But generally, and those do tend to be our most popular events, but generally, whenever we go out to the random public instances, we're treated fairly well, and people are happy to see us and go and interact and stuff. Um, it's just not for everybody, and
Mm.
I think it's a different kind of player back in the day versus now. But it also depends on the interaction. I'm painting with a very wide brush here, so.
Mm. Understood. So, what kinds of interactions would you expect nowadays from a player when you go up to roleplay with them as part of the LPD?
There's typically a few different interactions that I'll get. There's the quiet person who will just kind of watch from a distance and maybe follow us around, just curious what we're up to. There's the people who don't want to be interacted with at all, who would just ignore us. There's the people who will do what we internally call power playing, where they'll interact with us, but they're gonna win, and it just kind of gets a little out of hand. The people who will be like, "Oh, it's the cops, yeah, big machine gun," and just gun us all down, and it's like, well, how are we supposed to fight against that? Um, but we try our best. But there's those interactions, and then there's also the interactions where some people who are new to VR chat, sometimes they're just bewildered by like what is happening, and they think it's the funniest thing in the world. And then there's people who know about us and are excited to see us, and they'll like jump in immediately and try to cause a situation themselves, right? Like Imagine you're at the Black Cat, right? And guy's just sitting there with his friend at the bar playing with the bottles, right? Immediately sees us walking in. Hey, officer, you want a drink on the job? Here you go, free bottle on the house. Like dumb stuff like that. And of course, one of our guys will take it, and then we'll arrest our own guy, and it's wild. Um, so yeah, no, there's a couple common trends, but every interaction is going to be different.
Now, what are some of your more favorite interactions to have if you're out on patrol?
I really like running into people who are new to VR chat because then I get to go and show them cool stuff. Go like help them find an avatar or something. Um, I don't know. That's my personal favorite one. I mean, when I'm not doing LPD stuff, if I find a new player in VR chat, I like almost immediately take them to one of the project community worlds and be like, look at all these people who are interested in the same things you are. Go talk to them. So.
Very interesting. Now that you go pull back into L, PJKT, um, what is the general player response to PJKT, especially when you guys first started and running it, and why do you personally continue?
The initial response was a bit mixed. New event popping up, not sure what's going on, and people were just kind of apprehensive in general. And I think we knocked it out of the park last year and really proved that like, hey, we're not giving empty promises. We can actually deliver what we're saying. And so now the reaction is pretty good whenever I talk to people about PJKT, especially if they, like say I talk to somebody who's in a community and say, oh, didn't you guys have a booth last year at that event? And then they just go into huge stories about like all the crazy stuff that happened and how good of a time they had. And so I think the public perception's been pretty great, especially recently. A lot of people are very excited about this upcoming event, and I'm also very excited about it. And as far as why do I keep doing it, there's no better reward I've found than watching people interact with the content that you've made.
Okay. Would you mind? What have been some of your favorite interactions with the content you've made from VRChat that stick with you or has meant something to you?
I like doing puzzles and stuff and little secrets and things. And so I'm constantly putting little things in my world that don't really do anything, but like if people notice it, eventually someone's going to notice it and be like, hey, wait a minute. And I love doing that. But I also went a little bit bigger in the past where so in the LPD station world, it's just like a little police station, and it's mainly used for us to meet up and do events and stuff. But twice now, I've gone on Halloween. I've gone and put a mini game in the station that you just have to kind of figure out. Like it's there, it's quiet. There's nothing that tells you about it, and then you just for example in 2022, the one that I did. There's like an office area, and there's this door in the office that you can't enter. It doesn't go anywhere. And people have always wondered what's behind the door, and I've shown them the Unity project. There's nothing there. But during Halloween, I put two wooden boards over the door and a little sign that said "Stay out," and then I hid a spell book somewhere else in the office. And if you find the spell book and open it up, there's a little fireball spell. And if you shoot the door with that instead of shooting other players, the boards fall off the door and you can go in there. And then there's just a whole like Zelda style dungeon to go and do in there and puzzles to solve. And I didn't tell anyone about this. I just dropped it and said, there you go. And then people found it and were like, what? And I love that. And I love taking people today who haven't done it yet to go and play those old Halloween mini games. It's super fun to just watch them like figure it out. And, I'd like to give them real cryptic hints and stuff. And, I don't know. It's just tons of fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you another weird question in terms of people's reactions to things. When you're doing a project or a game or environment or anything, what is the video game like a video game company or designer response to what you do versus like a VR chat group or player?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
how would like the people you work with respond to what you make versus the people in VRChat, like the common player or VRChat group or PJKT?
Um, I don't know. I never really considered it, I guess. It's just always been like an individual basis. Like, hey, I made this cool thing, and if they're interested, then I'll tell them all about it. If they're not, then, eh,
Okay,
I don't know.
fair enough. Well, I will lead with a couple of final questions before we wrap up. One, how did you get your name and the avatar you're in? What, and also what makes you continue to use both?
So I've gone through a couple different online names throughout the last 20 years. Um, I think it was in 2015. I was just trying to put together sounds that I thought sounded cool on a keyboard, and I had a name that had this part in it, and I was using that on RuneScape for a while because they made it because you can change your name. That used to not be a thing. And then, over TeamSpeak one day, just hanging out with some of the people I played RuneScape with, they just kind of shortened the name down to just the Karet part, and that's what they kept calling me, so I just changed my name to Karet. And then, I don't know, I've just kind of been using it ever since, and that's just what I use. And so I don't really have any reason to change it anymore, so just it's probably what I'm going to keep for the rest of time. And then the as far as the avatar, long time ago there was a well, I'm sure they're still around. They're just not as popular from what I've seen. But there was an avatar creator called Scottish Ripper,
Mm-hmm.
and he made a bunch of avatars, bunch of Nanachis, and this is one of those, kind of. So what happened was I used one of his avatars that he used that was like this but orange for a very long time, just because I thought it was cute, little small fluffy lad, and I used the avatar so much that a friend of mine named Four, who is a friend of his, reached out to him and bought the Unity package from him for my birthday and spent like $80 or something on it and then just gave it to me. And I went in and, using all my game development skills, I went and re-atlased it, touched up the texture a little bit, made some changes, and fixed up some of the geometry and things, and just kind of made a more optimized version of it without all the other stuff that I didn't want. And so, yeah, that's how I got this avatar, but it's largely his design. The only other thing is, why do I keep using it? Mainly because I'm lazy, but I do have plans soon to make a new avatar that's going to be very closely based off this, just using a more up-to-date base with a few more features and things. I just don't have time to work on it right now, but there's a few new techniques that I want to try. So figure, why not make a new avatar? So.
Now, question for you: is it the Foxy model? Because one of the original avatars I rocked was altered version of that Scottish Ripper's avatar. I used to beat in a nacho too.
So was that the? It was a fox, but I think the model that I used, the avatar was specifically called Mad Hatter or something. It was the orange one. There was a
Oh,
blue one that looked just like it, but I used the orange one,
I
the
used
one that only had one
one
tail.
he called Foxy. I can show you the later version of it. Hold on, when it loads. Yeah.
And
Changing
many
it.
of his avatars look quite similar. He's got his own like style.
This is the one I ran for the longest time. A version of it, anyway.
Oh yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen that before.
Then I grew up.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I wish you the absolute best. And where can the audience find you if they wish to find you?
Well, thank you for having me. You can find me usually either hanging out in the LPD Discord at discord.gg/LPD, or just follow me on Twitter to see the random postings and stuff that I have of things I'm working on, and that's, I guess, x.com now, /5xa. I got a 3-digit username, because I made my
Well,
Twitter account in 2009. So,
well, Everything will be in the Hoobly What's It right down that way if you want to go check it out. Thank you for joining us today. There will be no thing today. See you in the Metaverse, folks.